Cameras are flashing brilliantly in the White House briefing room. The president is standing at the podium, broadcasting a message of historic global peace. The media is aggressively pushing the narrative that the endless wars are finally over. But exactly 4,000 miles away, under the absolute cover of darkness, reality is entirely different. Massive C-17 Globemaster transport planes are taking off back-to-back from classified airbases, and they are carrying thousands of heavily armed, combat-ready American troops into the strike zone. Why is the commander-in-chief preaching total de-escalation on live television, while simultaneously ordering one of the most massive, silent military buildups of the decade? The answer is buried deep inside a highly classified logistics manifesto. For weeks, the Pentagon has been quietly executing a massive ghost deployment. They publicly call it a standard, routine rotational exercise to keep the press completely quiet. But the sheer mathematics of this operation completely destroy that official cover story. Standard rotations do not require the emergency activation of the military Sealift Command. You do not quietly charter dozens of massive commercial cargo ships for a simple training drill. Someone inside the Defense Logistics Agency made a massive multi-billion-dollar mistake. They accidentally published an unclassified procurement request for aviation fuel. We are not talking about a few extra gallons for a weekend patrol. We are talking about 50 million gallons of high-grade jet fuel prepositioned in the Middle East. You cannot hide the purchase of 50 million gallons of highly explosive liquid, and you certainly do not buy that much fuel unless you are preparing for a massive sustained air campaign. The peace negotiations on television are an incredibly sophisticated, deliberate smokescreen. It is the ultimate application of the bait-and-switch geopolitical strategy. You force your adversaries to look at the diplomat extending a warm handshake, while your generals are quietly moving heavily armored chess pieces right to their front door. A closed-door Senate Armed Services Committee hearing recently erupted over this exact discrepancy. A prominent senator slammed a thick binder of these logistics contracts onto the table. They demanded to know exactly where these ghost brigades were actually being sent. The four-star general sitting at the witness table refused to answer the question. He immediately invoked extreme operational security to completely shut down the inquiry. The silence in that heavily guarded committee room was absolutely deafening. If we are supposedly entering a historic golden era of global peace, why the massive secrecy? Because the administration is quietly setting up a highly lethal invisible tripwire. They are deploying specialized cyber warfare units, Patriot missile batteries, and elite strike teams. These are not peacekeepers meant to hand out bottled water and blankets. These are Tier 1 door kickers heavily equipped for high-intensity asymmetric warfare, and they are being deliberately positioned at the most critical choke points on the global map. The strategy is brutal, incredibly ancient, and undeniably effective. It is called achieving absolute peace through terrifying, overwhelming military strength. You do not successfully negotiate with rogue regimes by putting your weapons down. You negotiate by pointing a massive loaded cannon directly at their capital city. And then you casually invite them to the negotiation table to discuss a ceasefire. The adversaries are currently looking at the satellite imagery, and they are completely panicking. They realize the public peace treaties are essentially a distraction tactic. The United States is completely rewriting the operational battle lines right under their noses, and by the time the enemy realizes they are completely surrounded, it will be far too late. But this massive shadow deployment carries an incredibly high, absolutely terrifying risk. When you secretly pack thousands of troops into a highly volatile, heavily armed region, accidents happen. One misunderstood radar blip, one nervous trigger finger, and the entire continent ignites. The line between a brilliant deterrence strategy and accidentally starting World War III is razor thin. The military commanders on the ground are currently operating under extreme, agonizing pressure. They are essentially sitting on a massive powder keg while striking matches in the dark. Who authorized the massive transfer of these specific advanced weapon systems? Why were the congressional oversight committees deliberately kept entirely in the dark? The paper trail is slowly, inevitably starting to leak out to the public. Defense contractors are currently working triple shifts to fulfill these emergency orders. Stock prices for massive military manufacturers are quietly surging in the background. Wall Street algorithms clearly know a massive conflict is brewing, even if the public does not. The politicians will continue to smile brightly and shake hands for the evening news cycle, but the heavily armed cargo planes are continuing to fly every single night. The absolute illusion of peace is the most dangerous weapon in the modern political arsenal. Pay very close attention to where the military is quietly building new concrete bunkers. Do not listen to the speeches being delivered under the bright, warm studio lights. Watch the shadows, follow the massive money trails, and track the heavy transport flights. The real geopolitical war is not being fought on television screens or in diplomatic halls. It is being quietly, aggressively prepared for in the dark, silent corners of the globe. And thousands of American troops are already standing right on the invisible front line,